When you look at a map, it's easy to spot the island of Ireland. But why is it divided? Why is there a Republic of Ireland and a Northern Ireland that's part of the UK? This isn't just about politics. It's a story stretching back centuries, filled with invasions, beliefs, and rivalries that have left their mark on the land. Long before borders, Ireland was a wild, misty island on the edge of Europe. The first people here left behind mysterious stone tombs, older than the pyramids, but we know little about them. It wasn't until around 500 BC, when the Celtic tribes arrived, that Ireland's cultural identity truly began to form. They brought a language, mythology, and a way of life that would define the island for thousands of years. These Celts evolved into the Gaels, a fierce and proud people. Their world was one of myths, druids, and warriors, ruled by local chieftains in dozens of small kingdoms. Life revolved around clan honor, storytelling, and a deep connection to the land. Then, around the 5th century, a new belief arrived: Christianity. Figures like St. Patrick, once a captive slave, returned as missionaries and lit a spiritual fire. Within a couple of hundred years, Ireland was a Christian land. Monasteries became thriving centers of knowledge, preserving ancient wisdom and crafting breathtaking manuscripts like the Book of Kells. Ireland became known as the land of saints and scholars, but peace didn't last. By the end of the 8th century, Viking longships appeared on the horizon. They came first as raiders, attacking monasteries for gold and slaves. But over time, they became settlers, building towns like Dublin, Cork, and Waterford, and turning Ireland's coast into a web of trade routes. The Gaels and the Norse clashed, but they also mingled. In 1014, the High King Brian Boru defeated the Viking forces at the Battle of Clontarf, breaking their power. But the island soon returned to its patchwork of rival clans. As one chapter of invaders faded, another was about to begin. In 1169, a desperate Irish king named Dermot MacMorrough invited Norman warriors from England to help him fight his rivals. Led by a knight known as Strongbow, they won easily and carved out lands for themselves. This alarmed England's king, Henry II, fearing his knights were becoming too powerful. He crossed the sea in 1171. The Normans built castles and spread across the east, but the Gaelic heartland in the north and west remained fiercely independent. Over time, many Norman lords adopted Irish customs, language, and names. They became, as English writers sneered, more Irish than the Irish themselves. England tried to stop this with laws forbidding settlers from marrying the Irish or speaking their language, but its influence shrank. By the 15th century, English control was mostly confined to a small area around Dublin called the Pale. But then came the Tudors, and with them, a conquest that would leave wounds still felt today. Henry VIII's break from the Catholic Church turned Ireland into a battlefield of religion and rule. Gaelic chieftains resisted, but the crown was relentless. Land was confiscated, and Protestant settlers were brought in to replace Irish landowners. Especially in the province of Ulster, the old Gaelic order began to collapse. The Irish rose up in 1641, but their rebellion was brutally crushed by Oliver Cromwell. His campaign left scars so deep his name is still remembered with bitterness. By the late 17th century, the island's fate was sealed under English rule. A Protestant elite took control of politics, property, and power. Catholicism was suppressed, and the Irish language was discouraged. The 18th century brought whispers of freedom, inspired by revolutions in America and France. In 1798, the United Irishmen, a group of both Catholics and Protestants, rose up to fight for independence. Their rebellion was crushed, and in its aftermath, Ireland's fate took another dark turn. In 1801, the Act of Union formally merged Ireland with Britain. Dublin lost its parliament, and London's control became absolute. The next century brought immense suffering. The Great Famine of the 1840s was a catastrophe. A potato blight destroyed the main food source, leaving over 1 million people dead and forcing millions more to flee the country. The image of empty fields and abandoned cottages became a symbol of a nation's pain. Yet, even in despair, the Irish spirit refused to die. Nationalism began to take root again. By the late 19th century, leaders like Charles Stewart Parnell were demanding home rule self-government for Ireland. Cultural movements worked to revive the Irish language, music, and pride. This was no longer just a struggle for land. It was a struggle for identity. The early 20th century brought fire and blood. The Easter Rising of 1916, when a small group of rebels seized key buildings in Dublin, was crushed within a week. But their sacrifice ignited a movement. After years of guerrilla warfare, the Anglo-Irish Treaty was signed in 1921. It created the Irish Free State, but at a huge price: partition. The 6 counties in the north, with their large Protestant and Unionist population, remained under British rule. The island was split in two, a wound that would ache for generations. While the South charted its course as a new nation, Northern Ireland became the center of a bitter conflict. The Troubles, as they came to be known, tore through communities for 30 years. Bombings, riots, and deep mistrust divided families and claimed thousands of lives. It wasn't until 1998 that the Good Friday Agreement finally brought a fragile but lasting peace. Today, Ireland is a nation reborn, proud, resilient, and still healing. It has transformed from a land of famine and conflict into one of innovation and culture. The wounds of partition remain, but so does the hope for a shared future. The Irish language, once silenced, now echoes in classrooms and songs. The spirit that carried this island through millennia from the Celts to the colonized still burns bright. Ireland's story isn't just one of suffering, it's one of endurance. Of a people who refused to forget who they were, no matter who tried to erase them. So, what do you think has been Ireland's greatest strength through all these centuries? Its faith, its resilience, or its unity? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you love exploring these untold chapters of history, make sure to subscribe for more stories like this one. Thanks for watching.